New mic system. Thank you, and please stick around because I know that board members, when we do finish public comment, will invariably want to follow up with some questions. So this is going to begin our public comment portion. I've been asked by a supervisor that we have some speakers that need to return to class, and they will speak together, and their names are, excuse me if I'm, Ray Cantor, Pam Washington, and Tony Cord. Please forgive me if I'm...
Mr. Chairman, in terms of process, in listening to both Mr. Brady and Mr. Morales, I sit here wanting more. Feeling like excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking a specific question. If we might allow the key speakers, both Mr. Brady and Mr. Morales, to then come back and have additional time. I'm left here with 10 minutes from each one of them and wanting a lot more information to make such an important decision. So if we might, after public comment, allow the responses to again be brought back, be it 10 or 15 minutes, I think it's so important that all information gets placed in front of us, that gets discussed, that questions get answered. I would really appreciate that time being allowed to the two speakers representing the different positions.
By all means, I think when we set up the original format, that those individuals would be available for any questions that we had to continue that dialogue. So, no doubt. All right, we have, they're not students, they're interns. Please forgive me, but thank you. And if you could please introduce yourself, and since you're doing it as a group, if you'll have 3 minutes, please.
And if we might, and I don't know if this is indicative or not, but if people are working for companies working for the high-speed rail, I think that has to be disclosed.
I personally think that that's not inappropriate, except for the fact it has to be left to the discretion of the speaker. I don't think I'm in a position to require disclosures as a constitutional matter. I think those individuals, but I think you hear the sentiment. So if you do have an affiliation, I know that some supervisors here would like to hear it, although I'm not in a position to force you to disclose anything. So please, Mr. Riojas.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for this opportunity to present this morning. I have brought 3 pre-apprentices with me, and please, if you would indulge me, maybe just a couple more minutes. I turned in a card to speak. They didn't. We had 12 minutes. This isn't going to take but 5. So I would ask the board's indulgence for just maybe a couple extra minutes. There is something here on the overhead. If they wanted to put it up, they can. I believe everybody should have a copy of this in front of them or in their packet. My comments will be brief. My name is Chuck Riojas. I am the Financial Secretary, Treasurer of the Building Trades for Fresno, Madera, Tulare, Kings. I am also the Vice President of the Central Labor Council. I am speaking today on behalf of, or in favor of, the high-speed rail and continued board support for high-speed rail. I want to briefly go over these numbers, and basically the summary part is the important part. And so the other part is a Jumpstart program. It's a county-sponsored program within the building trades with the apprenticeships. So I will draw attention to the summary part, and please let me preface my comments with this statement. The success of this program lies in the support of the supervisors, the Board of Supervisors for Fresno County. I truly believe that. Without the support of the Board of Supervisors 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to get to where we are today through grants and other things. I don't have enough time to explain all that, but I can later. But basically, in summary, total participants who began training were the Fresno County Jumpstart on behalf of the high-speed rail preparing people is 120 participants. We had 106 graduate our program. 57 of them found employment. 28 of them found employment in the construction trades through apprenticeship. And total participants off of welfare today because of this program is 39. Okay, and this program started in October of 2011. We are progressing with the preparing of the workforce for high-speed rail. And the 3 that are about to speak are indicative of that, and I will turn it over to Mr. Ray Candler.
Um, Good morning, all. My name is Ray Anthony Candler Jr., and I am a fellow veteran of the United States Navy, and I really appreciate them trying to get me back to work by going through these these programs, having to do physical education, having to learn all the different trades and whatnot, and trying to get me back to work to be able to be take care of my family and the stability and also the benefits that it has thereafter. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Ms. Pam Washington.
Hi, my name is Pamela Washington, and I am a pre-apprentice for the, pre-apprentice for the railroad. And I just wanted to thank them for the opportunity because I'm doing a career change in construction. And when I heard about the railroad, I was just ready to jump on board. It's been an amazing experience. They've afforded us so many different things. Through this experience, I've already received the OSHA, the forklift certification, and also CPR and first aid. And it's just been amazing. I'm ready to get on board. It's affording us opportunities to go to work, women as well in the construction field. So I thank them so much, and we're very thankful.
Thank you.
Mr. Tony Church.
Morning. I'm also I was a military veteran, and that's how I heard about the program for the high-speed rail and in favor of the high-speed rail through a veterans job fair. I wanted to get into construction, didn't really know, had no experience, and didn't know how to pursue that. So at this job fair, I met with Pat, and we spoke about this program, and I said, okay. And since the beginning of the program, they have given us certifications that help us in the industry, and they've exposed us to different trades to kind of give us a feel for, okay, what do you want to do with a career, not a job? It's going to be a career, and this is all because due to the fact that the high-speed rail is flipping the bill for that. So I appreciate that. It's a very good experience, and it sounds like it's a good opportunity for me, people before me, and people in the future. Thank you.
And I'll just close with this. You know, I appreciate the board support in the past. I will definitely appreciate it in the future. We are going to continue to train the next generation of construction workers. It would definitely hinder the process if we lost the support of Board of Supervisors, but we are definitely going to prepare the workforce for high-speed rail and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving through our list. We will start with and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing the names, Bob Jennings, followed by Steve Brandow, followed by Chuck, do I take you off? Chuck Riojas? Okay. Followed by followed by Mike Brady?
I've already spoken.
Okay, that same Mike Brady. All right.
Well, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for letting me come up and speak today. My name is Bob Jennings. I'm the president of the local building trades. I'm also the Northern California Regional Director for the state building trades. I've been a resident of Fresno for going on 30 years. My kids were raised here. They went to high school here. They graduated from college here. And 2 out of 3 had to leave here because of the lack of opportunity. I understand your concerns about the lawsuits, but keep in mind, the Bay Bridge, the Hoover Dam had hundreds of lawsuits. It prevailed. And I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody today that would say those shouldn't have been built. And what would it cost to build those today? We can't afford not to build it now. So to the doubters, I would say if not the high-speed rail, what would you propose that would provide the same economic, environmental, and social benefits that the high-speed rail will provide not only this region, but the state and the country? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Fresno City Council President, Mr. Steve Brandow, followed by John Togg and Frank Oliveira.
Thank you, Chairman Borges, and thank you, Board of Supervisors, for not only bringing this issue before the public and giving the public a chance to comment, but for everything that you do serving our community. And thank you, Supervisor Puchigian, for bringing this specific issue back one more time for us to discuss the item. I'm going to make just a couple general comments and then talk about District 2 of Fresno, of the city of Fresno that I represent in Northwest Fresno, which will be impacted directly by the rail project. But in general, I'd like to just make a couple comments. I drove a 10-year-old truck here today, and it's parked right outside, and I hope I don't get a ticket, probably like many people here. But the reason I drove a 10-year-old truck is because, well, let me just say that there's another truck that I would love to purchase. Matter of fact, my neighbor just purchased it. It's a great bigger truck. It's an improvement upon my truck. It's got a lot more amenities than the truck I have. My problem is I can't afford the truck that my neighbor just bought. And at this time, and I would love to, and all of my friends would probably love to have me cart them around in a new truck rather than my 10-year-old truck. But I can't afford that new truck, so I have to drive the truck that's parked outside. And someday I hope I can afford that new truck, and you all know it when you see it. And there's a lot of people in the room today that build new trucks, and they design new trucks. I have many friends in this room who are in the labor unions that work hard. I have many friends in this room that are engineers that design great things. And they can design trucks, and they can design and they can build great trucks. And I appreciate that, and I know they're all standing behind me, and they want this truck to be built. They want high-speed rail to be built because they will benefit from it. And I don't fault them for that. And every speaker that speaks to that end, I'm fine with them. I understand where they're coming from. They wish that I could go and buy a new truck as well because they could design and build that for me. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, and I could go out and purchase a truck today, but my problem is next month, the month after that, the month after that, I'd have a difficult time paying for that. And at the end, more than likely, I'm going to have to surrender that truck, and it won't be successful. The project won't be successful. That's what my worries are, is the budgeting for this project has never been laid out. The month-to-month, year-to-year budgeting of this type of project, just like my truck idea, has never been laid out. Now, I also represent 73,000 people in Northwest Fresno, and the rest of Fresno, 515,000 people. And we have a lot of concerns of the impact of this project on our city. I have business owners and residents in the neighborhoods adjacent to this project. Their lives will be disrupted. And I know some people that will get to build the project, they will make whatever fortune they have coming to them. But other people that could be impacted by this project, both in our community and District 2 and across the state, they could be adversely, negatively impacted. At the end of the day, we can't pay for this project, and we have to surrender it back. And so I have concerns for taxpayers all across the city of Fresno, and specifically the neighborhoods and business owners in Northwest Fresno. I won't be able to stay for the whole meeting. I have to go to another meeting across town this morning. I appreciate it. Good luck today. My personal experience is that your resolution today, Supervisor Pachigian, probably won't stop this project, because we've asked a lot of questions over the years, and we've never been satisfied at this point. So I don't think the project's going to be stopped, but I would ask that you would support this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question, particularly since we have the honor of having a Fresno City Council member take time out of his busy day? Thank you for joining us. What are the current stories you're hearing from businesses and business disruption and assistance to move businesses? Because there are a lot of activities happening, I think, in North Fresno that we haven't seen in other parts of our county. What are the stories you're hearing? Are they feeling adequately compensated? Are they still frustrated? Are they able to reestablish? Can you just give us a sense of what you're hearing?
As recent as yesterday, I heard from a property owner that said that the amount of money that he's being offered for his property is, in his opinion, well below market value. So I'm hearing complaints all of the time, various. Now let me add that that I am not here to say every person that's connected to high-speed rail, and especially the CEO, Jeff Morales, has taken many time to answer my questions and talk with me privately. But there's been a lot of other citizens and business owners who haven't had that opportunity and still feel like they have not been dealt with fairly. And as a city councilman representing them, that really troubles me. So I hear about people who've been tried to set up meetings who have not been able to. I've heard of people who are trying to facilitate moving their business. They've not been able to successfully do that. And so for all of those reasons, all of those concerns, is why I'm here today.
Thank you.
Right.
Next speaker is John Tog. Toss. There we go. That's an S. Thank you. Followed by Frank Oliveira and Sharon Duckworth.
Good morning. My name is John Toss, and I live in Hanford, California. Thank you for today, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our lives changed in January of 2010 when we found out the high-speed rail was going to go through 6 of our properties. One of the properties is on the north end of Kings County and the south end of Fresno County. We have a walnut orchard that straddles the county. It's one thing that the authority is going to take 100 feet or 120 feet diagonally through that orchard, a 160-acre, fully mature orchard. But it's another thing, they tell us that they want 30 to 40 acres for an equipment yard for 20 years to be leased. They're going to kill our trees, they're going to mutilate our trees, they're going to destroy our trees, and give it back to us after 20 years, totally compacted, full of oil and grease and every other thing that equipment does. So that's just one of many, many issues. Proposition 1A said that the rail was going to go along existing corridors. Through Hanford and Kings County, it's deviated from an existing corridor many miles, and that's why it's going through us. We won a lawsuit, Prop 1A lawsuit in Sacramento by Judge Kenney, also stopped funding of bonds. But did it stop anything? No. It's business as usual. The authority said, it's no big deal. It's business as usual. Since when does big government override our court system? That's exactly what happened there. I had a semi-private meeting with Governor Brown a couple of months ago. I say semi because there was 10 of us there. He referred to the train as his pet project and called it his choo-choo train. We as taxpayers in the United States, especially in California, are going to be required forever to pay for Governor Brown's fantasy of a choo-choo train. Someone said this would be great for our grandkids. Well, it is, to pay for the project and their grandkids. But I'm not here to just do that. I've got a bright shining light here. We need jobs. We all know that. But we ought to be talking about water, water, water. We need to take our efforts and our resources, because we are in a critical panic mode here in California as it pertains to water. We have wells that are going dry in Kings County that we're irrigating trees and nuts. In Kings County and Fresno County, when they dry up, can I have a couple more seconds?
Please.
When they dry up, that's going to be a resource of funding that the county is not going to get, because that ground is going to be bone dry. And the tax rate, you know what that's going to happen and all that. So I would urge you folks to make a complete U-turn. Don't support this rail anymore, but figure out a way to support water projects. There's enough jobs out there for reservoirs and lakes and dams and canals and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we have enough people in California to fill all the jobs as it pertains to water.
Thank you, Mr. Toss. Mr. Oliveira, followed by Sharon Duckworth, followed by Kirk Yergat.
I'm Frank Oliveira. I'm with Citizens for California High-Speed Rail Accountability. A lot of people view us as the opposition to high-speed rail and public transportation. We're not. We're just a group that is opposed to the current plan, because the current plan is flawed. Earlier you heard a statement that people were they're entitled to their opinions, but not entitled to their facts. Jobs have always been an issue. It's an issue here today. People showed up and talked, said they wanted a job. And that makes sense. Lots of people want jobs. The High-Speed Rail Authority originally, back in 2009, 2010, and I have it here on my phone from their brochure, says that there will be 600,000 jobs created for construction, 450,000 permanent jobs. This is in their documentation that they shared with us at the workshops when they came through. We've looked at that, and we've complained that that just didn't make sense, and that number's continually been reduced and changed to job years, and it's kind of lost now. The authority in March at a Senate hearing that I was sitting at reported, when they were asked how many people are working today in the project, it was reported that it was north of 8,500 people were working. But we did a public records request, and we find 6,000 plus people working nationwide on this project, 20% less. Where I'm going with this is that job numbers are inflated, trip times are not correct, ridership projections have never been correct. Everything about budget is not correct. Everything is not correct. So it goes back to an old saying, fool me once, fool me twice, or fool me since 2008. This project cannot be delivered as prescribed, and thus it should end, so that a project that actually complies with the law is crafted and run forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Duckworth, Kirk Yergott, followed by Randy Aronian.
Thank you, Board, for me being able to speak. Mine is small problems compared to farmers and all that. I'm here on behalf of my brother and myself. We own a home that's right in the line where it's been there for 100 years. Our grandparents had it, my parents had it, and it's where my brother and I live now. And we are not even getting the information from the high-speed rail that one house will probably be taken. We're finding this out through neighbors. Nobody has contacted us. Our address, we pay property taxes. We know everything's right there. It's not only if they took the house, if they do nothing, my brother has been very ill for 20 years. He has nowhere else to go. Somebody needs to get high-speed rail down to talk to the people, the little people that don't have the capacity to hire the lawyers, and just to help us out a little bit and know when they're coming out so we can have somebody to talk to. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you give us a general regional location? Are you in Hanford? Are you out in the country or by Layton?
I'm on Morton Avenue between Cedar and Clayton, right off Cedar. I mean, right up against, how many feet from the railroad?
You're about 190, another 60, about 250 feet from the railroad.
About 250 feet.
So as you understand it, the alignment's going to go right over the top of your home.
I told her that because the appraisers came out to my place.
And you're a neighbor?
I'm her next door neighbor, and he didn't have information on their house, and we was figuring everything out. I said, well, he says this house is going to go. I was, well, don't you want to talk to the owner? He says, I have no information about him. So he never talked to him.
We've lived there
And they're
all
going to
our lives.
demolish their house.
Yeah. And we lived there all our life. I mean, we grew up on that street.
Yeah.
I presume that you are Mr. Kirk Yergott?
Yes, yes, sir. I'm Kirk Yergott, and I own 5 parcels of farmland adjacent to the BNSF Railway in the eastern area. And these parcels are all going to be affected adversely. And I've had appraisers come out there last week. And of the 5, I got a notice on 3 of them. 2 of them I didn't get notices on. And I got maps, but those maps you can't read. I can't read the footage on them. And then they informed me that one of my rentals will be completely demolished, and that's the one I didn't get a report on, get a notice on. And the place I live, the ranch I live on, I did not get a notice on that either. So I have lived on one of these parcels. I've got 5 parcels in the eastern area that's adjacent to the railway. I have lived on one of the parcels since 1948, first with my late parents until their passings, by myself, and then with my wife since 1973. We raised our 3 children on this parcel, so there's a lot of emotional attachment for us there. The I'll call it HSR project will adversely affect our lives during construction and after construction by defacing my property and lowering the values of each parcel. It will also demolish 2 modern rentals, single-family home rentals, thus disrupting my tenants' lives. I was going to tell you, they're talking about all this hoopla about private people from Fresno working. All these appraisers are from Houston, Texas. They all came from Houston, Texas. I said, what's all this hoopla about local jobs? And if you want to talk about a big public works project, just look at the Bay Bridge. What started as a $1.3 billion simple project, and they didn't have any eminent domain, no property to buy, ended up as a $6.5 billion project that basically you've got an unsafe debacle with rusted bolts and cracked welds. And believe me, the same thing's going to happen on this thing, the way this thing's going. These guys all talk this, but do you believe them? I don't believe them. And in the past, comparisons have been made about acre. In fact, this was at a rail authority meeting with the, shoot, is that 3 minutes?
If you could summarize quickly
Okay.
in 20 seconds, that'd be wonderful.
When you deal with a developer, there's 2 willing participants. When you deal with high-speed rail, one guy's a willing participant, and they're holding the gun to the seller's head, figuratively, all right? All right, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Please vote no on this thing.
Thank you.
I mean, if history shows you anything, you better vote no.
We have, next speaker is Randy Aronian, followed by Ross Browning, followed by Heron Stout. Please forgive me.
Hello, good morning, everybody, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak. I have a piece of commercial real estate that's on the corner of McKinley and 99. I was approached by high-speed rail about 2.5 years ago. I was told that I am not going to be affected at all. The project's going to be about 100 yards away from me, so that was fine. And then about a year later, I was contacted again, and they said, well, we made some changes. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a turnaround circle right in front of your place. My property entrance is on McKinley. I go, okay. They're telling me I'm going to lose maybe 3 or 4 parking stalls. I'm going, okay. Then I get the appraiser on my property. I go over everything with them. And I contact the engineer on the property. And I want you to understand how this engineer works. This engineer does not work by coming onto my property and taking measurements. The engineer works by an overhead view, from a satellite camera. That's how the engineer worked. I was very specific to the engineer. I told him I get 70-foot tractor-trailer rigs into my place, and he needs to use that for consideration when they're doing this appraisal. So lo and behold, I get the appraisal end of last year. Gal comes in, Judy Dishire, and goes over this appraisal with me. but they never used a tractor-trailer, 70-foot-long tractor-trailer rig to do this appraisal. They used like a little car and boat trailer, they used a fire truck, but not what I asked for, because they had proposed to bring my entrance in on my east side instead of from my south side. My property was never made to go that direction. Therefore, I'm losing about 40 to 45 parking stalls. They didn't include my trash enclosures, which was clearly in the picture, but they didn't include that. So now we have a real big discrepancy. I went over this with a gal, Julie, who was the acquisition for the appraisal, and I explained to her, I said, so I got this issue, my garbage cans are an issue. I go, what about the parking? What am I going to do for all my customers and myself for parking? We need paved parking. She says, well, I'll get back with you in the next couple of weeks and tell you what you can do. I go, okay, fine. A couple of weeks later, she comes back to me and she goes, you know, we just can't do anything more for you. She says, but the state's going to give you $5,000 to do your own appraisal. That's, may I finish?
Please.
She goes, so that's what we're going to do, is give you $5,000. I looked at her, I go, you're going to give me $5,000 to do a $30,000 appraisal. I go, the appraisal was based on misinformation when I clearly stated to the engineer what needed to be done. So basically, looking at this, the way high-speed rail is dealing with this is they are doing a haphazard appraisal. They're putting the onus on me to make it right with them. Well, now I got to spend a lot of extra money to make this right. And just so you know, 2 months ago, I was at City Hall stating this very same thing in front of Dan Richards and Deanna Gomez. Dan Richards looked at Deanna Gomez, and Deanna looked at me and said, I'll get in touch with you within the next 3 to 4 days. Guess what? I haven't received a phone call.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks
Ardonian.
very much. Please reconsider your vote. This should not go through. These people are just running this rail right through us, and they don't care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ross Browning, Karen Stout, Manuel Cunha, Jr.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ross Browning. I'm a resident of Layton, California. You have heard some people come up here and express what they want to say with numbers. You've heard people positive. You've heard people with the negative side of things. You're going to hear more numbers today thrown around than you've ever heard. I came prepared to talk numbers, but I figured I better not, because you'll never know what's going on. What I really want to say. In the paper the other day, I saw a Cheryl Halflich, and the paper talked about her problems, what she's going through. And it dawned on me that there's a parallel between her and her husband and myself and my wife. She found out 5 years ago. We just found out 3 years ago what was happening to us. But we got no definite word at all, just kind of a vague. And then we found out that we were going to be wiped out, not by the rail, but by an overpass. 35 feet of dirt put on my house. I'm not very happy. Now they've changed the tune. They're going to go a different way, so it looks like we can breathe easier right now. But I want to pass some information on to you, and by way of that to Ms. Halflich also. We heard, I was told directly, and my wife was told directly by a member of the board, High-Speed Rail Board, that we would be made whole. When we asked, what are we going to do? What's going to happen to us? We were told we would be made whole. That same individual mentioned several times to other members of our committee, we're going to take care of you. You will be made whole. And when we asked what whole meant, he said, you'll be made whole. We hope it's not whole, H-O-L-E. We hope it's the other one. But what I want to say is that in fairness, the board is supposed to treat everybody the same. No favoritism one way or the other. Everybody will be judged by the same rules. Well, she can breathe easier now because the person that told me and my wife we would be made whole is the chairman, Dan Richards. And this was mentioned on more than one occasion. When I happened to mention this to a member of his staff at one of the public meetings, he looked at me, the color drained out of his face, he looked like a deer caught in the headlights. And he said, shouldn't have said that. I said, I'm not his watcher, I'm just telling you what he told me. So thank you very much.
The next speaker is Karen Short.
Out, S-T-O-U-T?
Excuse me.
Okay.
It's hard to read the handwriting.
My name is Karen Joyce Stout, and I'm a farmer in the Central Valley. The project is going to transverse my property diagonally, the right-of-way, and I am a member of CCSSRA, the Citizens of California for High-Speed Rail Accountability. Some of our members have said before, we're not against the project, we just don't like their choice of alignment when they have other options. It is not the same project today as it was years ago when you voted for it before, and the plans now are illegal and they do not follow Proposition 1A. It takes courage to do this thing that you're doing and evaluating the projects as those changes come about. Thank you for bringing this issue to the forefront once again. The current project's alignments are not along major transportation highways, so they are unnecessarily devastating to the agriculture and therefore this whole area. There are alignments, say, along I-5 that would not destroy agriculture as it is now planned. That's mainly what I was going to say, but just to talk a little bit about what Jeff Morales said. He talked about air quality and talked about mitigation by planting some trees. The mitigation measures that I've seen says they're going to plant 5,000 trees. So from my place to 4 to 5 miles south of me, if you pull out the trees and grapevines, that would only take care of 4 or 5 miles. So 5,000 trees is no mitigation whatsoever, and that's just a total joke on their part. Cap and trade, that's illegal also by Proposition 1A. This project is not to be subsidized in any way, and that's just another form of taxation and taxing people at the pump to pay for this project. And he also, Jeff Morales, said something about transparency and how great that was and how he's trying to do that. My neighbor around the corner, they just pulled a core sample off the county easement to his property, and he wasn't even told that they were coming out to his property and making this core sample, which they call wells now, and kind of skirting Kings County with their technical lingo. So if it's core samples, it's core samples. If it's wells, it's wells. So why don't they call a spade a spade?
Thank you. Manuel Cunha Jr., followed by Kathy Omachi, then Ron Jones.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, President of East Farmers League. I'll make it quick. The high-speed rail, Mr. Morales, thank you for being here. We've been at this for a long time. We've had your engineers, your bankers, your appraisers. We've met with them. I do know a little bit about appraisals, deal with a lot of farmers in the valley. The league represents all sizes. What kind of disturbs me, though, of all of this is the age of the people. A lot of these people are not going to be able to replace their lives, their houses, their costs. They have health issues. All of us are pretty healthy today. When you get to my age, you're way younger than me, you weren't even born during my time, you have all sorts of other issues. But I look at the 600 people that are in the community of the Fresno area. A lot of businesses, a lot of destruction. But the ag land, that's where I'm focused on. When you cut a piece of property diagonally, and John, you know what that means? You cannot farm that other piece of land because you have to go downstream 4 or 5 miles to get to the property that you used to farm. Go right in the field. Absolute destruction to the property value. Your appraisers have told me, well, we may think of buying that. It don't work like that. The banks control a lot of our farmland, and a huge portfolio of our farmland is owned by the banks. So another big issue is the reappraisal of loans and farm loans is going to be hit really hard, and that's a destruction to our industry. I-5 should have been where it was, but no matter with that, the dollars and cents is an issue for this state. Ready jobs, if we pass the water bond, and Mr. Perea, your son, is doing one heck of a job on that bond effort. And I appreciate his work and consideration on that. And we've worked with him, and he considers the water a very important part, and that's great. And we're working with him.
We have these same issues, Manuel.
Yeah, but water projects, we can build them tomorrow. We can start jobs. We can build dams. We can build Temperance. We can help Shasta. We can help sites. We can help put major water projects in the valley tomorrow to start work versus the longevity. Okay, so I understand that. But the part that bothers me, your people, and I'm being very professional, were disruptive, were rude to agriculture. Now, you have an advisory committee that is very, very biased.
Mr. Cunha, with all due respect, if you could please present
yes,
your
I
opinions
understand
to
that.
the board. Thank you.
I wished that the High Speed Rail Authority would have sat and worked with agricultural leaders and farmers and everybody. But a lot of my farmers are losing their land and losing their value and may end up owing more money on their land now than what was because it's being dissected. And that's a big issue for our farmers and the farm workers, the farm communities. And we didn't think about that. So I would hope today that the board moves to send a message that this county is not going to support where high-speed rail is today from what it was, and the 1A also issue. So again, thank you for bringing this back, and I think it needs to be shelved and take care of water first. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Omachi, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Ron Jones, followed by Shelley Andranigian. Did I hear that from somewhere back there? Was that close?
Good morning. My name is Kathy Omachi. I live at 759 F Street, Reedley. So I'm a county resident, and I've presented to you before on other issues such as the Kings River gravel mining, but this one is so close to my heart. I'm also currently the Vice President for Chinatown Revitalization here in Fresno. Many people still do not believe that there's a Fresno Chinatown, nor that it is the original home of 11 ethnic community groups they call the Valley home. My father would have been 100 years old this October, so my family has been in the Fresno County area for over 110 years. We have seen in Chinatown what happens when a railroad goes through and cuts off a community. We have seen in Chinatown what happens when a freeway goes through and cuts off a community. Presently, what we are facing in Chinatown will probably be the death knell from an area that was established in 1865 if the high-speed rail continues as it is poorly planned. We had been involved for years with the high-speed rail. In fact, we held 2 community meetings that were some of the highest attended meetings that high-speed rail had. Still, we were not notified of any environmental documents nor allowed to make comments on a very flawed cultural component of resources that are going to be destroyed. We were the ones who basically told high-speed rail that you cannot build in a particular area because of the underground tunnels. They did move the proposed station back a block. And what they have found now is what we have said is true, that there are underground tunnels that actually go under the railroad system. But were we ever considered? No. If we are closed off by the construction for over 5 years, you will not have a Fresno Chinatown left. This is the same that you're experiencing in the county of Kings County and also Kern. You need to take a look at if those two counties also have the same concerns of many of the issues that are being presented before you, then maybe this plan is not the best one for us. Maybe we need to go back, involve people in the discussion of what the plan should be, how it should be laid out. Also, part of the plan needed to be discussed if this was going on in 2008. Then why wasn't one department notified that they were putting in millions of dollars to build the new DMV on Olive, and where now the freeway overpass is being jogged over to take out an entire strip of businesses because they don't want to destroy the new DMV. This is we've been facing in Chinatown, where we're looking at our little building. We have a 12.5 by 50-foot lot that we were offered an offer sight unseen by High Speed Rail for $37,000, and I'll finish up. We were told we needed to either accept it or it'd be eminent domain. We have experienced the unprofessional rudeness and high-handedness of some of the lower levels of high-speed rail, but we gave them the benefit of the doubt since they were not from local agencies. The question that came up, if you have 75 or whatever contracts, 55 contracts that were done locally in the county, you need to ask them how many were the total contracts and what percentage of the money was left here.
Thank
Thank you.
Could I ask Mrs. Omachi and Kathy, thank you for your tireless work on Chinatown and bringing attention
Doesn't
to
help with
this
the body,
important
huh?
part of our history. Could you send us information on what you have requested of the high-speed rail in terms of understanding specifically from Chinatown revitalization and preservation of a longstanding history of our region, what exactly you see would solve some of those problems? I'd be interested in knowing more information on that, because I think it is important to preserve our history.
We would be happy to. Our board president, Jeremy Brownstein, has submitted several letters, not only on the state level, on the federal level, and High-Speed
If you
Rail
could just
Authority.
email them
We would be
over
very
or-
happy.
Or
Thank
give
you.
us a packet.
And we do
I think it's
appreciate all of your support in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Ron Jones, Shelley Andranigian, followed by Leanne Eager.
The other one.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but I like the light. It makes me look
Let there
better.
be light.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity for me to update you on the Train Riders Association of California's efforts to upgrade the SJ-JPA rail system. My name is Ron Jones, and I'm the Vice President of TRAC. TRAC is a statewide organization whose members represent the professionals and interested citizens who have advocated for the best possible rail systems for California for decades. TRAC is aware of the issues facing the present California high-speed rail project. Regardless of every individual or group's position on the issues, most agree that there's a possibility that the Fresno Merced HSR project may not go forward, and obviously not the rest of the project. The lawsuits before the Court of Appeals were stated by the court to have merit as they were weighed their decisions. The lower court decisions are very solid. The hope of cap and trade funding for the present plan is marred in the fact that this project is likely to take a majority of the funding away from other projects, while requiring the most mitigation measures. The amount of mitigation stated in their EIR will be tested in two separate lawsuits by an environmental group and the State Chamber of Commerce. I can't think of two more diverse groups on the same lawsuit. I mention these things because TRAC wants you to be aware of the potential for ERA funds, which are the federal funds now involved, to be transferred into improving the San Joaquin corridor. My appearance today is to inform you of TRAC's activity on this possibility. Our efforts presently are going forward to inform the legislature of ways to fund the upgrade of the San Joaquin to at least 110 miles an hour, which the federal government considers high-speed rail. The San Joaquin Corridor Service Development Plan developed for high-speed rail and for the SJPA has outlined in many cases and detailed this plan, which TRAC is promoting, with upgrades between Sacramento and Bakersfield. The connection to the Bay Area would be part of a future high-speed rail project and would be as a connection to Los Angeles. This 220-mile-per-hour service could be built along I-5 as demands increase, and it's documented. Combining improved service to existing San Joaquin stations with eventual high-speed rail service to the destinations outside the valley, we think is the optimal long-term rail solution for the corridor. People mentioned today, is there an alternative? Well, there is, and it's been talked about for a long time, but it has been suppressed. Cooperation to do so would likely be much better from both the freight companies who would see their system improved and local federal representatives who are the present House Majority Leader and Transportation Committee Chairman. The present plan to use the ERA funds has been a very contentious and divisive issue. TRAC's hope is that there is still enough passion to build railroad service for California's future to overcome past scars and quickly and show the Federal Rail Administration that California is always planning and adapting to ensure it is doing the best service for California. By your willingness, I've got about 10 more seconds here, maybe 20. By your willingness to reconsider your position on the present plan, you are giving the largest single infrastructure project ever created or even thought of in the United States its rightful review. How this project proceeds and its success will have a major impact on other needed projects that are funded and built in California. California must decide what is best for what California has here. California cannot be micromanaged from those who do not live here or even have been here. TRAC's hope is that we can be a positive partner in that direction and help, as you are trying to do, lead others. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for your time in discussing this.
All right. Hi.
If it's any, makes you feel any better, I have problems pronouncing your last name too. Is it Borges?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Even better with Armenian names. Well, good morning, Chairman Borges, Vice Chair Case McNary, Supervisor Perea, Supervisor, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Supervisor Puchigian, thank you for putting this on here on the agenda today, and Supervisor Larson. I thank you very much for including high-speed rail on the agenda and letting each of us here have a chance to speak. It is very much appreciated. I have brought a packet of documents that I have sent to the Army Corps of Engineers, the Federal Railroad Administration, and the California High-Speed Rail Authority on behalf of our family and our impacted farmland in South Fresno County. I have also spoken before the Rail Authority here, including here in Fresno this past May, so I know Mr. Morales here very well. Thank you, Bernice. I'm going to read from my speech before the authority on May 6th, because I know there were a lot of people here that weren't there that day.
As long as you keep it within the time limits,
I will.
please.
I can speak fast. I've been told to slow down. It was 3 years ago. My name is Shelley Andronigian. I am a native Californian born and raised in Fresno County. It was 3 years ago this month that I attended a meeting at Kit Carson School to Hanford, California to support those who had homes, businesses, and farms in the path of the California high-speed train. Now, mind you, this was delivered on May 6, 2014. Although I have always loved trains and have been on high-speed ones in Europe, I didn't like the way these individuals in Kings County were being treated. While they're looking at maps and speaking with those representing the interests of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, I inadvertently found out our family farm was also in the proposed path. The train was not only traveling in the middle of our pluout orchard in South Fresno County, there was also a temporary construction site a quarter mile behind our family home. Our ranch just across California Highway 43 was also negatively impacted. Both of these properties, which are next to the lush and majestic coastal of the Kings River, remain so negatively impacted today. A letter discussing the impacts, which include air, land, and water, of the California High-Speed Rail on our family business was written to then Chairman Umberg in October 2011 on behalf of the Andronigian family and Andronigian Farming. This letter and the responses to it were inadvertently omitted. The authority's words, not mine, out of the final EIR-EIS just issued in April 2014. Letters omitted aside from mine include those from Tule River Association of Water Districts, Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District, California Rural League Assistance, Inc., Citizens for California High-Speed Rail Accountability, CCHSRA, of which I'm also a board member, First Free Will Baptist Church, Fowler Packing Company, Kings County Farm Bureau, Korean Presbyterian Church, Mel's Farms, Mercy Hospital in Bakersfield, Trini's Oil, Inc., and Union Pacific Railroad. Based on these omissions alone, you are not ready to take action tomorrow. but I hope you guys take action today and adopt this resolution. I'd like to know why it is so critical to build a high-speed rail system in California when the resources are not there, the legal issues large, and the surrounding environmental issues yet to be resolved. Rushing and doing a lousy job that will need to be corrected is not the proper way to build any infrastructure project, especially one that is supposed to pave the way for all future high-speed rail systems in America. Please note I am also here today to represent those who have farms but were not able to make it to this meeting as the harvest season has started. Those who feed and clothe the world work 24/7 to do so, especially during harvest. Thank you in advance for your consideration of doing what is proper for those in the proposed paths whose lives and livelihoods will be forever altered by your actions this week as well as in the coming months and years. Your goal should be that those in the pathway, I just have like 20 seconds. Your goal should be that those in the pathway would not forever negatively be altered by your actions. I leave you with a favorite passage from the Bible, Proverbs 6:7. Determination to be wise is the first step to becoming wise, and with your wisdom, develop common sense and good judgment. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Leanne Hager, Walt Plakta, and Randy Andronian.
Good morning, Chairman Borges. I wanted to start with addressing Supervisor McNary's questions about working with the businesses on alignment. The EDC has a contract with the City of Fresno and the County of Fresno. Currently, we're working with about 155 businesses that are on that alignment. Those businesses right now are in the City of Fresno. Many of them are in North Fresno, and we have been working with them in their relocation services, with looking for new sites for them, with helping them through this process. Now that the EIR-EIS has been completed for Fresno to Bakersfield, we'll be able to start the south of Fresno area, so out in the county. So we'll be able to work with those businesses like Mr. Yergat and those out in the county in order to help them through that process too. In addition, I think one of the important things that we've been doing is economic development around high-speed rail. One of the things that you probably know as I go around the country, go around the world, talking to people about bringing their business to Fresno County, I'm always asked, tell me what's new. Tell me what's going on there. We've looked at Fresno County before. You have to convince me to bring my business here. Of course, we're working on getting our folks ready to work, and we appreciate all the help that the county has done in order to help us do that. But when I talk about we're going to be the first high-speed rail in the entire United States right here in Fresno County, that gets their interest. Now they're looking at, oh, gee, maybe we should start looking at Fresno County again. What do you have available there that we can bring our business? And these are not just people working on the system. These are people who are interested in that train system, interested in coming to bring their work here, and people who are in Texas right now looking at the train system there, people who are in the Northeast Corridor looking at the train system there. Now they're looking at Fresno County about bringing that here. I'm also working really closely with the folks in Northern and Southern California doing an MOU on how we can connect what we're doing here with what they're doing there. I think I talked to you before about I worked with the biotech industry up in the Bay Area, and what they told me was they manufacture in the East Coast because they can fly in and out of the Bay Area easy, or in the Midwest. I said, why aren't you doing your manufacturing right here in Fresno County? This is ridiculous. We have everything available right here. And they said, we can't get there from here. If we have our people living up in Marin County, we don't want to drive 6 hours through the Bay Area to get to Fresno to do our manufacturing, but I can fly really easily across the country. When I talk to them about high-speed rail, what if we had that here? Would that make a difference? The largest manufacturer of pharmaceuticals in the entire country is in San Francisco. And he said, absolutely, that would make a difference. And he said, I'm embarrassed. I'm absolutely embarrassed that I haven't looked at that before. But I want to start looking at it now. If you have that ability to be able to connect us, I want to start looking at that now. And that's the same thing in Los Angeles and La Jolla. In La Jolla, they're doing a lot of biotech, and they're looking at that same kind of thing. This is not the time for us to stop this. Here in Fresno County, we've had high unemployment and high poverty forever, for as long as I've been here, and my parents and my grandparents. This is something that can change that for all of us, and this is not the time to put the plug on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick question, if you could answer. There's about 300 parcels in Fresno County that will be affected.
Yes.
And how many of those parcels to date, let's see, this is the 6th year, how many parcels have officially transferred ownership? Any?
Oh, just give the number.
Just throw the number
2,
out.
4, 6, or 8
55, Mr. Clerk.
have
55.
officially transferred ownership. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
But the 55 was a good one.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Walt Plachta, Randy Andronian, John Hernandez.
Morning. Good morning. Chairman, Supervisors, thanks for letting me speak. You got my name right. That's unusual, but I appreciate that. 30-year resident of Clovis in Fresno County. I work for CEI Engineering. We are not currently working on the high-speed rail in any capacity, but I do represent. No, that's not the right. I shouldn't say I represent. I'm part of an industry that is already working on this project, and we are been working. It's hard to tell that we're working sometimes. It's hard to drive by an engineering office and look in there and say, man, those guys are in there working hard. It's easy when you see a construction site. But we've been working at it for many years, and many local firms are working on it. I think you heard some of the numbers of how many companies have already worked on it. But one of the numbers you didn't hear, I think, is the $56 million in local contracts to local firms just in CP1. The construction package 1, and that's a pretty big number for us, obviously. And so, that work is ongoing. We were pretty excited. We get excited about weird things. They did a test pile for the design for one of the piers for the bridges. Things like that have to get done before the construction gets started. So I ask you to not change your position on the high-speed rail. I believe it's a worthy project and has already shown that it is good for our county. I did want to say too, I'm not currently working on the project, but I am current vice chair for the EDC. I work with Leanne and them and on the chamber board. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy. Okay. Is there anyone in the room named Randy Andronian?
I think he spoke already.
Did he speak?
Maybe.
John Hernandez, followed by a Bianca Rodriguez, then Alfred Mendoza.
Yeah, thank you, Board of Directors. I want to thank you for all your support for the California high-speed rail system. I think it's critical. As former CEO of the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I've gone all over the country and the state, not only for high-speed rail, but for economic development. And this particular project represents one of the largest impacts that can be felt here in the valley. And when you look at the future of this valley and small business, it's important that we have a transportation system that works effectively and at the same time keeps our air quality. One other issue is we need water too. Water is extremely important. But could you imagine the dynamic impact of the water projects that we have planned or that will be coming on top of the high-speed rail that's going to be coming? That will put people to work. And that's what our motto was at the chamber while I was there, was we put people to work. And that's what this is going to do. And being the first pays. Silicon Valley, first. What happened there? Could you imagine if they said no to computers and the internet? Hollywood being the first. Could you imagine if they said no to movies? Las Vegas. Could you imagine them saying no to gambling? And there are many reasons to stop a project, but we had the biggest reason to stop a rail project ever in the whole history of our country. And we had a man and a country that held things together. And I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln. If there was ever a reason to stop a project, it was the Civil War. And Abraham Lincoln stood behind that. And that's what this board has to do. And to my opinion, it makes no sense to change your position now when the board makeup is going to change in just a few months. It just sends a negative message. And if we cannot capitalize on this, there's another opportunity for Fresnans, for the Central Valley, to be left behind. And unfortunately, from being around the state, I've seen our valley get left behind time and time again. And it's important that you be our voice for the people of this valley to say we want jobs. Just to give you an idea, I was dropping my wife off at work. She's a preschool teacher. And I zipped on in. I could get something to eat. I had a choice, right? I could go to McDonald's and get me something to eat, or I could go into the Save Mart and pick me up some fruit. So I picked up some fruit. It cost me just under $4 to get 2 apples and a good size peach. Can you imagine some of the poor in our community not being able to get the kind of food that they need? And we are the breadbasket of America. We need to make sure that we have the jobs so people can afford to live a little bit and to provide for themselves and their families. So I'd urge you to say no to this idea of not supporting, because our community is counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bianca Rodriguez, Alfred Mendoza, and Anya Radaba.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bianca Rodriguez. I am a Fresno State civil engineering student, also organizer for the I Will Ride group here in Fresno. I'm also here on behalf of Precision Civil Engineering. Our president, CEO Ed Dunkel wasn't able to make it, but I do want to mention that I'm also working as a project intern for the PCM team with the high-speed rail. I am a prime example of high-speed rail working. I mean, 2 years ago, I was working in an office somewhere where I did not want to be. I mean, my plan, and I've mentioned this before, my plan was 2 years, I'm graduating, I need to start looking Bay Area, San Francisco, Los Angeles. I need to figure out where I'm going to go, because for me, Fresno just wasn't cutting it. I didn't see the opportunities that I wanted to see here. As an engineering student, I mean, a lot of people have mentioned water, and yes, of course, it's a major issue, but it's just not something that I was interested in as far as my career goes. I had a plan in mind, and I was going to get there no matter what. With high-speed rail, things have drastically changed for me. I've had the opportunity to stay in Fresno. I grew up in Selma, 15 minutes from here. I've been in the valley practically all my life, and it's just too bad that, I mean, it's sad to say that that was my, I mean, that's what I had in mind. Now that I'm here, I've had the opportunity. I followed high-speed rail since it started, and I've been given the opportunity to really do something with my career here in Fresno. I mean, I absolutely urge you guys to support us, because, I mean, we need your support. We need the jobs here. I mean, Precision Civil Engineering has hired 4 individuals already that are working within the PCM team. I mean, the change has happened, and it's a big difference from 2012 to where we're at now. With that being said, I mean, that's really all I have. I just, like I said, urge you guys to continue the support. We really need you guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, where'd you get that shirt?
I mean, we had them made. I can definitely get you one if you want one.
Will you wear it when it costs 80% of an airfare to go on a high-speed rail?
I would possibly still wear it. Thank you.
Alfred Mendoza, Anya Radaba.
Good morning, everybody. So I also myself am a civil engineering student at Fresno State, and I got super excited when I heard about the high-speed rail, because I just thought about the technology that we can bring to the valley. And look how far we're behind. Like, what do we really have besides some solar panels and a bunch of solar farms that some work, some don't? But bringing the high-speed rail, like it's been said, we can cut off a lot of emissions throughout California. We can bring air pressure systems for accelerations to move it, magnetic suspensions, which will help give it the speed that's been brought up with the little to no friction. And we could attach solar panels to that as well to various sections of the track if we needed to apply more energy to that, renewable energy. And this got me really excited to further pursue my career in engineering. And if I get excited about this project, let's just imagine the younger minds, the younger generation who are soon to be going to college, or even 10 years from now going to college. If we can offer internships through the high-speed rail, or even small field trips to show schools what they can do, what they can learn, and how much they can bring to their home, and how much they can provide, that would be very inspiring for them to become engineers as well. And that could be a various mix of mechanical engineers, civil engineers, computer engineers, and bringing all this upcoming of new engineers that we can possibly bring from having the high-speed rail project here. Think about once this project is over, if it is completed, and if you guys agree to continue with it, how much new systems or new technology that these younger minds can bring to improve more problems in the valley, which it could include water, the water problem. And I myself have been, I was a part of a research group at the beginning of the summer which went over small dams to put into streams and certain mountainous ranges in California to produce energy through turbines and such, and these dams only be 5 to 10 feet high, not very big, but, use the little water we have, the flowing water, to create more energy. And just, me and the classmates I was working with, in the same example, if younger kids, like I said, get inspired to become engineers and they have ideas like that, either from the high-speed rail or after the high-speed rail, I think that would be a great way for the valley to take one step into the future and, to become better and thrive a little more. So if we do not decide to continue with this, I think it would be just another way of putting us behind and, getting us stuck where we're at now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a quick question?
Hopefully it's quick.
I just have a quick question for you, and I kind of think this may be a generational thing for me, and I'm kind of getting the message here. If someone promised you that they were going to do A, B, C, and D and charge you $1,000 for it, and then you kind of waited a bit, and they said, yeah, we're not doing A, B, C, and D, but we'll do F and G and charge you $5,000 for it. Would you have a problem with that? I mean, and it's a generational thing, I think. Would you not have a problem with someone telling you they're going to do one thing, telling you it's going to cost this amount, and then they totally, well, I didn't mean totally, Mr. Morales, but they do change. They change it drastically and charge you twice as much. Would you have a problem with that, or you just figure you could find a way to justify it because the ends justify the means?
Well, it sounds like you're referring to the high-speed rail,
Yeah, I kind of am.
And something of this magnitude of a project, I would expect some change, some drastic, jump in price because,
right,
like it's been mentioned before, we haven't had something this big in California, and no one can really know exactly what outcome's going to be.
And you're right. I would expect changes too, but not when people have voted on it and said, that's what I want. I want A, B, C, and D, and I'm going to vote for it. So I guess that's the generational thing.
That was a very good
you.
answer.
Yeah, it was.
That was a good answer.
Thank you.
Anya Radaba, followed by Tate Hill and Bill Descari.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Anya Radaba. I'm the Executive Director of the Madera County Farm Bureau. The Madera County Farm Bureau successfully sued, litigated, and settled with the California High-Speed Rail Authority last year. We achieved through settlement what we could not achieve in a CEQA litigation, what we thought was a fair process for identifying and quantifying agricultural lands and agricultural land values that would be correctly identified and impacted by this project. The settlement required that the High-Speed Rail Authority take into account the remnant parcelification or remainder ag parcels for inclusion as either resold ag properties or increased mitigation burdens throughout the project. This is the only project in the history of California that, after litigation, is now providing 1.5 to 1 acres of agricultural lands impacted. So to some extent, we're very proud of that settlement. The High-Speed Rail also committed to a very fair evaluation process for our landowners, and that's the issue at hand. We have not received, on any level, a fair valuation process for our ag properties. I'm very fortunate and very blessed to represent every single ag property owner in the alignment in Madera County. None of them have received accurate appraisals, and the ones that have received even something close to a final appraisal is 80% less than the average cost of land in the area. The precedent that this is setting, or is on the edge of being set, is horrifying and has horrific impacts valley-wide, not just in Madera. And my county has had to lay off over 2,000 people for ag-related jobs because of the speculation associated with this project. Madera County continues to be tasked with taking one for the team and to allow for a statewide project to come through at a great loss of our own citizens, our own economy, and our own future. The Farm Bureau will not continue to stand by and watch our ag heritage be stolen, which that's what this is. This is theft, and a precedent set that's certain to drive out ag entirely from our county and the rest of the state. Fresno County also stands to lose a great deal with this precedent. I believe that the HSR is coming out and lowballing intentionally in order to set land acquisition prices throughout the alignment for ag properties. Farm gate value, which in Fresno County exceeds $10 billion, that's a lot of high-speed trains, is defined as being job creating and sustaining. How many jobs have to be sacrificed while we're aiming to find a guesstimation of new jobs? Fresno County needs to look to the precedent that's currently being set in Madera County, and we're only a fraction of y'all's economy, and if there's a reciprocal effect in Fresno County, you're looking at damages in the billions. How many people, how many businesses have to suffer, and what's the cost of your blind faith? Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you.
Anya, could you repeat? You said you got a court decision on the ag parcelization, basically when they go in and cut right across a parcel, leaving two pieces that aren't equal to the whole. What exactly was the settlement in terms of what offer did Madera farmers receive in that?
So the settlement requires that if an ag parcel is under 20 acres, the authority outright must purchase that. If the parcelification, the remnant parcel that remains, is over 20 acres, the authority must do a sequence of three things. They must, A, attempt to sell it to the neighbor if they can kind of integrate the irrigation technology together. Sometimes that makes more sense. B, the authority needs to resell it as ag property. And if neither of those two options are available, the third option is that they actually fallow the property and add that to the overall mitigation burden of their properties, of off-site ag mitigation.
And your farmers are happy with that?
We were substantially satisfied at the time of settlement, but throughout the acquisition process, none of those offers or appraisals have included those activities.
Okay, and that's if the remnant property is 20 acres or less?
Correct. And if 20 acres or more, they have to do some things.
Thank you. Mr. Tate Hill, Bill Descari, J.D. Bennett. We are in the last handful of speakers. If anybody else wishes to comment during this public comment portion, please fill out a card and bring it over to the clerk to the board. Thank you very much.
Good morning, board. My name is Tate Hill. I am a resident in Chairman's District, and my office are in Phil Larson's along with family and church. I am the president of the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a small business owner who actually is one of those few have had opportunity to actually do some work related to the high-speed rail project. I'm coming here today. Recently I had opportunity to go to D.C. just last week and to go to the White House, and one of the comments were asked by Aubrey Stone, who's the president of the California Black Chamber, to Mr. Secretary Anthony Fox. Do you see that if there's a bright future for the California high-speed rail project? And he said he did, and I confer with his comments that there is opportunity for the high-speed rail project to go forward. Just to also preface my comments, when I came back to Fresno, my youngest sister, just had a baby, and had opportunity to hold that baby. And you think about, baby's wonderful thing, she's beautiful, but with that baby, there's something that comes out that baby that's not also wonderful, right? And I kind of think of the high-speed rail like a newborn baby. There are a lot of joys, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's some things that come out of it that aren't so pleasant. And to take the adage of the old saying, you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I think while the high-speed rail project has a number of challenges with the scale of the project, we also have concerns about the number of African-American firms that have received contracts. There's only been 5 out of the 106 less than 3% of the contracts. And we have been large supporters, our chamber and a number of other chambers, ethnic chambers, around contracting opportunities and what that would mean for us here in the Valley. But that said, I think it would be ill-wise or not wise to throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's look at how we can improve the high-speed rail project. I would even encourage, I mean, there have been a number of concerns and issues that have been brought up today that may be new information or additional information that you did not have before. And so I would think it'd be wise for you to take the time to make a full decision. And I don't know how you could do that today. And so I would really recommend that you would really vet the comments made by a number of community members here in your decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've listened to all of this and all that it's going to do for Fresno. And I agree that it would be very beneficial. And I'm not really opposed to the high-speed rail. I think it's fine. Is now the time? That's my question. But the thing that I'm really questioning is everybody talks about the jobs and all of this that's going to happen. Let me recite about 10 years ago when we put in the Mendota Federal Prison. You're going to have all these jobs in Fresno. You're going to have all of this benefit to all the jobs that will go on. You're going to hire them out of Mendota, and you're going to hire them out of Tranquility, and you're going to hire them out of Kerman. Everybody got excited when it was put down. You know where they had to go apply for their jobs? In Maricopa County, Arizona. Because the simple reason is that federal contracts, now this is a state project, but it has federal contracts. Federal contracts cannot determine who, when, or where you hire anybody. It's done by the contractor. So what guarantee do we will have all of these jobs that you're talking about? That's what really bothers me about this.
Thank you, Member Larson. Bill Descari, J.D. Bennett, and Martha Kolstad.
I'm Bill DeCary, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. A recent Fresno Bee article regarding the board's reconsideration of its high-speed rail stance prompted me to come from Bakersfield to attend this morning's meeting.
Wow.
Because this project is headed straight for Bakersfield. The authority said if they get south of Standard Road, which is just north of Bakersfield, 7 Standard Road, they'd give a 60-day notice. I call that throwing us a bone, but there's not a lot of meat on it. This board is to be commended for having the courage to revisit an issue they have long supported in order to consider extensive new information that has come out over the years that we've been hearing about all morning. The question is simple. Is the project what Fresno initially envisioned? I think the answer is a resounding no, as we've been hearing about this morning. In reality, the project is no longer high-speed rail. At best, it's an expensive project making Amtrak faster. Reportedly, Fresno would be the center of a high-speed rail research and testing facility in the United States. High-speed rail is successful around the world. What's the research and test? If the project continues, Fresno County and City would be torn up for at least 5 years during construction and would be left with an incomplete project that is begging for money. The project will languish for years. In conclusion, the situation here in Fresno is similar to Bakersfield, where over 10 years ago, with little engineering done and only sketchy information available, a downtown high-speed rail station sounded good, and the city council supported it. In the meantime, it has been revealed that high-speed rail tracks through Bakersfield would be elevated 90 feet. The downtown station would be elevated 30 feet. Much more is now known about dislocation and destruction of businesses, churches, residences, city infrastructure, and the damage to medical facilities and schools. As a result, recent votes by the Kern County Board of Supervisors and the Bakersfield City Council were 4-1 and 6-1, respectively, to file sequel lawsuits against the High-Speed Rail Authority, mainly because of non-response and lack of mitigation measures. I encourage the board to discontinue support of this high-speed rail project as currently planned. In short, and not to be flippant, get off the rail and get on the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. J.D. Bennett, Martha Kolstad, and Mr. Fred Vanderhoof.
Thank you, Board. I'm not doing anything but a Windows phone with notes. I've transgressed into the electronic world. Mr. Morales stated
Hey, you're
that the...
progressive, J.D.?
It's a bad word. Mr. Morales talked about the transparency and the honesty of the High-Speed Rail Authority. Why has the High-Speed Rail Authority not informed the citizens of California that this project, although they say it'll bring jobs to the valley, it will also take 8% of the jobs that are currently in the valley? The loss of business, the loss of homes of people moving out, and the illegal taking of homes by eminent domain, which is another project, eminent domain. State and federal laws and codes are clear that eminent domain can only be implemented when the project is fully funded. This project is not fully funded. If this project is so grand, why is there no private investment? If this project is so grand, why is 67% of the citizens of California, through numerous polls, not in favor of the project at this time? Why is high-speed rail not letting this go? Why are they against letting this go back to the people for a revote? It's not what we voted on in 2008 with Prop 1A. It's taken major changes, and I don't think that the citizens of California have gotten a fair deal on what they were promised. Farmers, dairymen, and small businesses in Fresno are not going to ride Jerry Brown's choo-choo to L.A. The San Francisco to L.A. route, where most of the people travel, where the big businesses are at, would make much more sense if we're going to have a high-speed rail in California, and that corridor would be along the same lines that the citizens voted for in 2008. One of the gentlemen spoke about picking up some fruit at a local Save Mart. We're going to lose a lot of that by taking our farms out of California, out of the Central Valley. We're the breadbasket of California. We're going to lose a lot of that. So far today, the majority of your constituents that have spoke up here are either against or have grave concerns about this project. And I think that should open your eyes to the same concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Martha Kolstad, Fred Vanderhoof, Jeremy Brownstein.
Good morning. I'm glad this has been brought to our attention again. Thank you, Ms. Pachigian, for bringing it forward. I've attended probably 20 meetings about high-speed rail. I am a small business owner as well as, but I'm here as a private citizen today. And so you can call me a bit of a groupie for high-speed rail, but not in a good way. I'm very, very concerned about the environmental laws that are being bypassed and excused for high-speed rail. We know that there are a lot of birds, animals, turtles, and things that are being affected, and I just wonder why it's so important for other businesses and other people to have to comply with environmental rules and regulations, but high-speed rail doesn't have to. I wonder what the real costs of high-speed rail. I'd like to know what the costs are year to date, which I have asked Director Richardson on several occasions, who also promised me that I would get that information, you know, within a very short period of time. That was over a year ago. I think those costs should be made public to all of us so that we know what has been spent year to date, including salaries. I understand after being in Sacramento a week ago or 2 weeks ago that high-speed rail consistently has job openings looking in 5 and 6 figures every week that are posted. Why? What are we recruiting for? You know, where are these monies going? And we obviously are not going to be able to pay for this. We're talking about funds not being available. California is broke. Job creation, we're talking about job creation. Real job creation would be oil. California has oil reserves like crazy. I just spoke to somebody on vacation a week ago who's in the fracking business. North Dakota is paying $25 and $30 an hour at McDonald's, and they're picking the people up and taking them to work and bringing them home. That's called job creation, and it's called job security, and it's called freedom for Americans to have oil here instead of being, you know, dependent on the Middle East. This is a debacle. I'm happy that Ms. Pachigian has brought this forward. Totally support your resolution, and I hope the rest of you do as well. Thank you.
Mr. Vanderhoof.
Thank you, Fred Vanderhoof. Appreciate your patience, Mr. Chairman. 1975, 76, and 77, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, 800 miles with entirely privately financed for $8 billion. So what's the difference between this and that? That project, which is still producing oil, was entirely, again, privately financed. Where are the private financiers for this project? We've heard that there may be some coming. But this whole project is funded by the public sector. The private sector is very capable of building something like this, a major project. But there are no private investors, essentially. There may be a token private investor at some point. But it just seems absurd to the common taxpayer, like myself, to look at this, and where is the funding coming from? It's absurd to have court cases still in progress and funding and this starting to be built. It seems unbelievable that there's still court cases, that there's environmental impact statements still in progress. So let's look at California real quick. California, the debt of California, if the federal government is going to throw in several $billion, if the private sector is not involved, it's up to the state of California to produce most of the funding. The state of California is in debt more than any other state, over $700 billion. Soon to be, some estimates, $1 trillion for the state of California. CalSTRS, CalPERS, $70 billion in general obligation bonds. How can the state of California afford this? The money has to come from somewhere, so it's going to come from the state of California. Our taxes are going to have to be raised. Another bond. We can't afford, the state of California can't afford any more debt as it is. So this just seems very unwise, and I appreciate the resolution that has come forward, and I would ask that you would support Ms. Pachegian's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Brownstein, followed by Susan McHale Garrison, and Sherilyn Smith.
Good morning, Board. My name is Jeremy Brownstein. I'm the Board Chair for the Fresno Chinatown Revitalization, Inc. nonprofit. I'm also a recent graduate from Fresno State. I'm a proud social worker, and I also live downtown, and I have a business in Fresno's Chinatown. And I really believe that the personal stories paint the picture of what we've seen. We can talk about where this is going to go, what it's going to do, but as far as we've seen in our community, it's been a huge disaster. We learned about April of last year that an environmental report had been put together that kept us off the table. We had no idea. There was no consideration about the historical significance of the area or the impact on the 78-plus organizations, businesses, churches that exist in our Fresno Chinatown. So we decided a month later to have a community meeting to assess, do people have concerns? Would they like us to move forward? And it was a very large meeting attended by many individuals with lots of concerns. Fast forward to fall of last year, we had an open meeting. We invited members from HSR, EDC, the City of Fresno, to answer questions from the community. And I would like to let the board know that this entire meeting, which ran almost 2 hours, is on YouTube. And you can obviously see in this video that no representation from any of those agencies were able to adequately answer the concerns and questions of the members of our community. And our largest concern through this entire ordeal has been the EDC, the high-speed rail. They've been trying to purchase properties. They've been pushy. They openly admitted at this meeting that they had made a lot of mistakes. And moving forward, they've continued to make the same ones. And so concerns of ours are, during 5 years of construction, how will that affect businesses that rely heavily on the downtown area that will be cut off? We have so many businesses that have had to sell. The EDC has moved 4 businesses. 2 have had to go out of business because of the low ball amounts that they were offered. I frequent many businesses along down the Golden State Highway. I've had restaurants tell me that they've been offered $30,000 to relocate, and if anyone knows about business and opening a restaurant, it takes a lot more than $30,000. And so we've just seen a disregard for individuals and their livelihood. And I want the board to understand that this isn't going to create jobs. These are temporary jobs. The means don't justify the ends. And as a community, we are not only speaking as an organization, but of the residents and the businesses in Chinatown and around Fresno, because both these meetings we had individuals come from all around because they were in the dark, and we've been in the dark. And so I voted yes on this proposition when it was on the ballot, but it's not what I voted for. It's the wrong plan, the wrong team, and the wrong time. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan McHale? I'm sorry, I just can't read.
That's all right. It's Susan McCall Carrasco.
Aha!
And I'm a 2-year resident here of Fresno, although I was born in California, and I spent the last 30 years in Washington, D.C. And I'm here in support of high-speed rail, and I want to tell you about something that you need to consider. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, Metro Rail, they're in D.C., Northern Virginia, and Maryland, was going in. And it was opposed by special interest group, the old money families, folks in Georgetown, other pockets of Falls Church, Alexandria. And when Metro Rail finally went in, and I started taking the Orange Line from Vienna, Virginia, Fairfax, downtown every day. But when the Metro opened and expanded, all the mom and pop malls throughout all of those areas began getting increasing businesses. Corporations who did not have a presence in the 2 state and district areas soon had presence there. The corporations who were already there expanded jobs. And guess what? The kids were staying in that area. Growth was explosive, and our home values all of a sudden tripled and then quadrupled. And homes that maybe were $125,000 were suddenly close to $800,000. Tax bases increased. They were able to lower the rate on the taxes. The schools were improved. They have some of the best schools in the nation. And there's no reason why the Central Valley and here in Fresno that you can't do that. You want your kids going to school, staying here, let them commute to LA, let them commute up to the Bay Area. This is what you want for Fresno. You're always going to have special interest groups that are going to have the loudest voices, the most money. Sure, there are going to be bumps along the way, but you need to be thinking long term. And I come from an old established California family here. I have a degree in agribusiness. I'm very much in favor of agriculture, and I'm sorry that some of our ag lands may be impacted, but anytime you have a major project, this is always going to happen. You need to be looking long term. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Wait, don't go.
coincidentally,
I have a question.
The Georgetown line never occurred.
And
Sorry,
now
Member Cheegan.
they're very reluctant. I don't know anything about Metro Rail, so excuse me for that. But how is that different than Amtrak that we have now from Merced to Bakersfield?
Urban.
Yeah.
Well, so how is that different from what we have from Fresno to Visalia?
Certainly the Metro Rail is not as fast because we have a lot of stations along the way. But the number of people that it transports every day is in the millions.
Right.
But it was just an excellent long-term project for Virginia and Maryland and the District of Columbia and the businesses that came. You have a fine university here, and you need to be thinking long-term about all of Fresno County. all of it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to understand how Metro Rail would be any different than somebody coming from Merced to come to Fresno State on Amtrak. But I'm good.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Metro Rail is what I guess you would call short track. Oh, it is above ground in many areas. Downtown, they had to go underneath, and it was very costly, but they did that. But if you look at the vision in the future for Fresno, you want to keep your families here. You want to grow your tax base. You want to grow your schools. You want to bring jobs here. It isn't just the jobs for building of the high-speed rail. It's the businesses that you're going to attract to Fresno. You want to ask yourself, how come Silicon Valley isn't here? How come Microsoft doesn't have a campus here, or Google? You certainly have the talent, but the brain drain is going up to the Bay Area or to Southern California, or it's going up to Washington. Why not Fresno?
Thank you. I'm sorry, just in the interest of managing,
Rail for the city of Fresno.
just in the interest of managing this meeting, I think we Member Case, did you have a quick comment? But we have more speakers
No,
to
I
get through.
actually have a question, and I appreciate the comments. I see some similarities and some dissimilarities, but that being said, I lived in Boston when the T was being expanded, and there were huge issues in terms of the pathway it needed to follow. But in terms of the Washington Metro, which I love, by the way, it's a great system, was there any private investment in that system, or was it all done by government funding? Do you recall?
No, I do not. When I moved there, it was in the early 80s, and it had just opened. Okay. But I was very much aware of the history because I had been commuting back and forth on that.
All right, thank you. Because I am really interested in the private investment piece since this is statewide. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Sherilyn Smith, James Tuck, Kathy Yergat.
Yes, thank you for holding this meeting and reconsidering this issue. It's very thoughtful, very important, and very critical at this time. Thank you, Supervisor Puchigian, for opening this up. I have been attending high-speed rail board meetings in particular, but a lot of different kinds of meetings regarding this project. And as one who has attended, and I can testify, others would say the same thing, the first thing you notice that the high-speed rail authority is incompetent to manage this project, particularly fiscally. But what's happened now that I've witnessed since 2008 is that when we passed Prop 1A, that's a contract between the government and the agency and the people. It's a law, and the people created that law. What I've found is that we've been hoodwinked into believing that they were in compliance with it for the last 6 years, when in fact the courts shattered that fallacy just last November. And we're continuing to pursue that fallacy and bring it down. What I found is that not only do we find, as Ms. Vice Chairman Judith McNary just pointed out, that there is not private investment with this company. The people who came up here and named or seemed to mention companies that would bring business here certainly didn't mention any names, did they? And why haven't those companies who are so eager to do it approached HSRA for investment purposes? Why not? Because we're carrying the burden as a public. And now that that public trust has been shattered, I need to point out that they're reverting to cap and trade to jumpstart what's essentially a botched financial project. And in doing so, they're going into further illegal territory. Cap and trade itself has stipulations about reversing greenhouse gas emissions within a certain period of time, when in fact the LAO, Legislative Analyst Office, has determined that this project will be a net polluter for 30 years. It certainly is being challenged at this moment by recently leveled lawsuits, and that needs to be paid attention to. I am so glad that you're looking at the issue and scrutinizing it at this point. Look at the results and what these people are trying to accomplish. In addition to the lack of private investment, they have very faulty ridership projections, as stated by Stanford professionals who have worked on these kinds of transportation projects. They've asked them to produce what their criterion was for their ridership projections, and they had never done it. In addition, as you know, the overall cost has fluctuated wildly over the last few years, and we're supposed to go on a breath and a promise that this is going to be good for us. Nobody invests in anything, even as individuals, on that kind of pie-in-the-sky evasion. Please take this into rational control and think about what's really going on here. I have a letter in the Sacramento Bee. Please read it about the cap and trade issue, May 20th.
Your comments,
Thank you.
if you would, please. I did have Supervisor Larson had a question.
I just, mine's a statement more than a question. I sat in a hearing in Washington, D.C., probably about 10 years ago, and a lady from the I think she was from the East Coast, was complaining about agricultural subsidies and how much they cost the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And the senator that was leading the discussion was from North Carolina. And he said, you know, ma'am, you're right, it costs a lot of money. He said, how did you get in here this morning? She says, I rode the Metrolink. Wonderful transportation system.
Mm-hmm.
She said, it's great. He says, do you know that the Metrolink in Washington, D.C. costs more than all the agricultural subsidies that had been instituted from the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's not even paying for it now, and it'll never be paid for, like the subway in Philadelphia and subways in New York. They are all subsidized. In essence, my point is that that's what's going to happen here. This will be totally paid for by you, the taxpayer, and the federal government.
As I said, thank you, Mr. Larson. As I said, pay attention to the lawsuits. There's another one coming up which points that out, that this project will be eternally subsidized. The ratepayers are the ones, it's on our backs, and if they get private investors as they promised, it's only because we've covered the capital cost largely, and then they'll come in and ride the wave just as they did on Prop 1A. They were feigning compliance all along.
Mr.
Thank you.
James Tuck is our next speaker. Come on forward, Mr. Tuck.
Already over what I said.
No, but I'd like to invite you to the podium.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. You people are going down the wrong path. We're in the hole. You can't afford anything. We got a water shortage, and I would invite you, if you really want to vote for this project going through, that you need to start adding some asphalt and some concrete and some Proposition 65 stuff to your food. That's exactly where we're at. This is just a coincidence. This is all happening because the people are rising up. This is slow death. This is pollution that should have never came into this valley from Redding to Bakersfield. This is the breadbasket of the world. I don't care what your bank account is and your worthless money. American citizens are not going to put up with this crap. And our Heavenly Father will take care of whatever you decide against it.
Thank you. Kathy Yergat, Michael Flahiff, and Tony Boren. This is the end. These are the last three cards that we have. This is my last call for folks that wish to comment during this public portion comment to fill out a card and submit it to the clerk of the board. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't going to talk because I don't have a lot of the facts and the figures. I'm just a landowner with my husband on Morton Avenue. For the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, we've been told that our property will be probably is one of 5 properties or 6 properties that might be taken for the maintenance yard. So my life's kind of been on hold. I didn't know what to think, what to do. I'd go to town and I'd go to a neighborhood and I'd sit there with my car and I'd say, I don't want to listen to neighbors. I'm out in the country for a reason. I have serenity out there. I don't want to hear somebody else's dogs bark or somebody yelling and fighting next door. I like my serenity, and that's what I've got. But the other day, when the assessors came through, and I'm walking through our fields with them, and they're talking, and they're going to take the group of walnuts over here, then they're going to take some of our vineyard over here, and it's like chop, 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 chop. They're taking part of my serenity, part of my property. Then they're going to take 2 of our rentals. The rental people are very upset. Then they're going to take one of my neighbor's homes. Now, his home to you might not be much. He was born in that house. The neighbor across the street was born in that house. They've lived there forever. Say you give him $100,000 for his property. Half of his property is owned by another family member. So now he has $50,000. This man doesn't have anything in the bank. So for $50,000, where's he going to go? What's he going to do? He's ill. I told one of the men that I was walking with, I said, this man's been ill. What's wrong with him? I said, ask him. If he wants to tell you, he'll tell you. Well, is he going to be around the next 6 months? Is he going to be around? What does that mean? You know, is he going to be around? So now you're going to take his property. You're going to take the property all along the track. You're going to take the businesses all along the track. What happens to those people? Already we've been told ag land has been asked. They aren't going to get 20, they're going to get 80% of land value. 20%. 20% of land value? What is that? For a lifelong dream of people being farmers, and they're going to get 20%? Somebody said they went to the grocery store, bought fruit. Where's it from? Is it marked Brazil? Is it marked Mexico? Maybe that's because the farmers don't have water. The farmers are going out of business. Engineering kids, they're going to get engineering jobs. What about ag kids? Where's their jobs? Go to the West Fresno, they're all fallow. Land's fallow. So what's going to happen? Say you take everybody's property. Is there a guarantee when you take the property that it's actually going to happen? Do they have a guarantee?
Ma'am,
Take their property.
if you could direct your comments to this board.
I'm sorry.
Not to
I'm sorry. Okay.
the public.
But when you take the land, when is it going to happen? You take the land, the people are displaced. Businesses are displaced. When is it going to happen? Is there a guarantee? And when you take my neighbor's house and you give him $50,000 and displace him, is it going to happen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask the speaker?
We have two more. If we want to
Well,
wait.
this is specific to this speaker.
Okay.
And I don't think there's any other more important agenda item on our agenda that we take all the time we need. We heard testimony from the executive director of the Madera Farm Bureau and a settlement that was made with the high-speed rail in regards to remnant parcels and basically how they look at ag lands, that if a parcel is under 20 acres, that the high-speed rail will purchase that property, or if a remnant piece is under 20 acres, they would give them 3 options, one being purchasing the property, offering it to a neighbor, or fallowing it for mitigation purposes. Do any of those settlement agreements help your particular circumstance? Because you have both farmland and you have land within a community? Are any of those viable options for you?
What neighbor would buy our property? You know, all the neighbors in the area, their property is going to be taken.
Well, it's either a neighbor could buy it or they would have to purchase it in whole as opposed to separating it into 2 pieces. Okay, so it really doesn't affect you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Michael Flahiff and Tony Boren. These are the last 2 speakers that we have, and we will then close public comment and bring it back for deliberations by the board. And if there are follow-up questions, the board members can call up members in the audience. Flahiff.
Hi, good afternoon, I think. I came here today to speak because I I think it's a good thing, the high-speed rail. Certainly, a lot of these issues I hadn't taken into consideration, so I don't envy your position in having to make that decision. So, but I have a friend who couldn't be here. She said to me, and I agree, this will bring a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't be able to live here and work elsewhere. So the commute, I think, that the high-speed rail will allow in, high speed as opposed to Amtrak, would be a good thing. Someone mentioned earlier, I heard you might have to raise the taxes. Certainly this will be and has been an expensive project, I assume. Yes, okay. I'm a little bit nervous. You might hear my voice cracking. Sorry.
No problem.
Anyway, yes, you may need to raise taxes. That's a reasonable thing to do. There are higher tax brackets that live here in the Valley and in California that, could be taxed further. I don't want to get into that whole thing, but this is in the name of progress and, connecting the state with the high-speed rail, and I think that would be a good thing. Furthermore, I don't know how this council feels about the legalization and taxation of marijuana possibly in the future. Speaking of progress, I mean, I think that would bring more money in to maybe fund this.
That's this afternoon.
It kind of relates, with the whole funding thing. I don't know. But yeah, there were some other things. The pollution aspect. Certainly, this would eliminate some vehicles traveling, with gas. I don't know about what. I think it runs on electricity. I don't know, but let's see what else. There was something else. A couple other things I wanted to say. No, I think that that was it. But I think we should do the high-speed rail deal. But just one person here, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boren.
Good afternoon. Tony Bourne, Executive Director, Fresno Council of Government. Just wanted to get on the record with regards to the actions of the Fresno COG Policy Board. Again, that's our regional transportation planning body for Fresno County. With regards to the actions that we've taken, on June 24, 2010, the board unanimously supported the high-speed rail heavy maintenance facility being located here in Fresno County. On January 27, 2011, we supported the first phase of the project known as CP1. On March 24, 2011, we supported the City of Fresno's grant application for a downtown station funding. And then with regards to the heavy maintenance facility, I asked staff to contact some of our member agencies yesterday to see the actions their councils had taken related to the maintenance facility, and we heard back from Fresno, City of Clovis, Sanger, Mendota, Fowler, San Joaquin, and Kerman. Those are all on record as supporting the maintenance facility. I believe there's more that just didn't get a chance to get back to us. I also wanted to highlight the fact that the Fresno COG Policy Board has pledged $25 million in Measure C revenues in the event that we're awarded the high-speed rail maintenance facility. I also wanted to correct for the record earlier that the comments about the eligibility of the money. It's been very clear to us, and it was reiterated last week in Washington when we met with the Federal Railroad Administration, that this money can only be used for high-speed rail. It came through the Recovery Act, also known as the Stimulus Act, and so I just want to clarify the record for that. And then lastly, with regards to employment, on a personal note, my daughter graduated this spring from Fresno State in the engineering program, and she has recently gained employment here locally with an engineering firm that a good percentage of her work program is expected to be high-speed rail. So that's just for the record. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourne.
Tony, if I might, having sat on the COG Policy Board in the past year and at other various times, there have been some split votes, I believe, on COG too. So there are some very vocal elected officials in some of the communities in our region that really don't like it because of costs or other things. Do you remember just kind of to share the flavor of some of that? Because I think there are some who are really concerned about the cost, and that's what I recall on some of the COG votes. And the complexity of this issue is just huge. I think it's important that we really look that this is still a pretty controversial project, and there are a lot of opinions about it.
Right, and we have the reality that every election cycle, we have new members that come in, and so the actions that were taken by those respective boards reflect the folks that sat on that board at that time. For example, the former mayor of Kingsburg, Mr. Blaney, was always a vocal opponent of everything high-speed rail, and again, a lot of times his issues were centered on the fact that it just didn't pencil out from his perspective, and he held on to that throughout the process. Along the way, we've had some be supportive and some haven't. Again, this has been a long journey, and as I was looking back at the resolutions, it triggered a lot of memories. I know you're aware of that. This has been quite a ride. So again, I think the issues have been debated. Our policy board, again, depending on who you speak with and what particular year it was, you're going to get a difference of opinion. But I think by and large, particularly on the heavy maintenance facility, there was unanimous support that if there was going to be a heavy maintenance facility, Fresno County is where it should be.
Yes, Member Larson.
Yeah, just to address the $25 million, that was Measure C money that was allotted to COG to distribute. I mean, that was designed for roads, now it's going for rail.
Well, this particular category was not for roads. It comes from the rail consolidation program. So when we put the measure together, there was money set aside for, the idea was that at some point we hope to consolidate the BNSF line that runs through the center of Fresno and move it over to the UP corridor. But as that played out, it became obvious that was going to be quite expensive. And then when high-speed rail came into the picture, fitting all three of those lines in the same sort of tight corridor just wasn't going to work. So there was a recognition by the COG board that that money might be better put to use someplace else. And then that's where the idea of using it to help facilitate the maintenance facility if we should get awarded it.
But that's kind of an example. That money was voted for roads by the citizens for Measure C, and it got changed. So what's going to happen here? We're going to get things changed here too. I mean, just my comment, because I understand and I remember when it happened.
With all due respect, the voters voted for Measure C because maybe they wanted to consolidate rail lines, and someone else that thought they knew better changed what the voters voted for with that $25 million.
Those who knew better were the two bodies here that are responsible for the Measure C revenues, the Fresno COG, which is represented by all the cities and the county are on that board, and the Fresno County Transportation Authority, that 9-member board.
It's an example. It's a very similar example of what's happening here. You have a group of people that are in authority that change the rules, basically, at their will and don't adhere to the wish of the voters. That's the bottom line.
Maybe we can save, we're going to now conclude public comment. We're going to bring
Yeah, but I do have, I'm sorry, one question or comment to Tony, because I can't let that one go. You can't confuse the rail consolidation money with the new technology fund. Okay, and the money for this project, at least in this perspective, was a new technology fund, which was undefined.
Well, he said it was rail consolidation.
No, the $25 million for the heavy maintenance facility is rail consolidation.
Well, that's that fund,
yeah,
okay.
the new tech money is for the other.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Bourne, for your comments. That will conclude our public comment portion. I'm now bringing it back to the board for their own deliberations. Each member of the board is also able to pose questions to folks, especially representatives of the Rail Authority and those involved in representing entities in the valley.
Mr. Chairman, I had asked earlier if we could have just a comment again from the leader of opposition and the Rail Authority to respond to some of the public comments being made. I think there's some value in spending that time, be it 10 or 15 minutes per individual, because they came with the research data and some other things, and I think there would be value in asking them to do some wrap-up for us.
If it's the will of the board to have a wrap-up session,
That makes sense.
then we'll do that. How does 5 minutes sound?